It's the annoying old dude talking music. Today we're playing a music man. John Petrucci, JP6. You know, anyway. There you go. Put it away. Yeehaw. Today's topic, boy. Let's see. What can today's topic be? Well, I already know what it's going to be. Something that I'm breaking away from talking about other things today, just to talk about this. And this is just something that really, I think really just kind of, it just kind of chaps my hide, should we say. And it's all this. I've talked about it before. In fact, let me give you a little bit of a background of the era I grew up in. Obviously, was mainly the '80s, right? Obviously, the '80s musically. When I grew up listening to Slade, status quo, depending on how you say it. Queen. Oh goodness, I'm trying to think who else I listened to. Anyway, whatever my dad listened to, that's what I was listening to. And then it wasn't until like 81, 82, one of my sister's friends said to me, "What do you have in your album collection?" And the reason I'm telling this story is it'll bring me to my point real quick. It's just real quick. So I said, "Oh, my album collection is, I don't have a lot of albums. I was listening to, outside of what my dad was putting on when he was listening to music, which again was bands like Status Quo and Slade, I was listening to the Bay City Rollers. I know. Out of the 6 people paying attention to this right now, 3 of you just left, but you should have heard me out. Anyway, she said, "What do you have in your album collection?" I showed her, and she kind of looked at me like, my sister was 3 years older than me, by the way. And she said, "You don't have any AC/DC or Ozzy Osbourne?" Now, the reason I bring that up is because it's not as if I probably hadn't heard this on the radio, but growing up in a household where my dad listened to a wide variety of everything, from, country to rock to blues to class, you name it. He was all over the place. He listened to everything, which was good for me. I mean, good for most kids if they have parents that listen to a variety, right? So anyway, I immediately went out and bought Back in Black and Blizzard Evolves, because that's what you do. And I remember sitting down and listening to, and this is where it transitions in. So see, those of you that stuck, the last 3 that stuck around, this is for you. So I listened to, I want to say it was Mr. Crowley. And at first it really freaked me out listening to that organ piece at the beginning. I was like, oh, what am I getting myself into? And by the way, the only reason I listened to that first, as opposed to listening to Crazy Train, I Don't Know, and all that, was I think I put side 2 on, because it was an album. You remember an album? This is a coaster. It's a disgustingly gross coaster too. It doesn't matter. But anyway, so I think I put side 2 on first, which was Mr. Crowley. I remember listening to it, but I remember when the guitar playing came in, that I just went, oh wow. Oh wow. And then I remember going back and listening to I Don't Know, Crazy Train, and just listening to that album and going, from Revelation, Mother Earth to Noble Movies to, it doesn't matter. Just listening to that album, I went, wow. Now, don't get me wrong, the Back in Black album, AC/DC, still love that album. You can't like rock and roll music and say, I don't like AC/DC's Back in Black. So that took me down the rabbit hole. Took me down the rabbit hole of what was out there, which was Randy Rhoads at that point. Then I listened to, after listening to AC/DC's Back in Black and Blizzard of Oz, I want to say I listened to Triumph, and Rick Emmett came into my life. And I was like, wow, this guy's really, really good. Really loved Rick Emmett. Does it Play the Game album or something like that before the Allied Forces? Anyway, and I went into listening to, those were my albums that I was listening to. And then, of course, Quiet Riot eventually came on into the mix with the Mental Health. But then before Quiet Riot, I believe, I remember saying to people at school, you got to hear this Dokken album. And everyone was like, who? I was like, Dokken, there's this guy, the guitar player. And I don't even think I knew his name at the time. Sorry, George. Not that you'll ever see this. But if for some stroke of luck you do, I didn't know your name, but I knew that this album made an impact on me. So now we were up to a Triumph album, AC/DC, Ozzy's Blizzard, and now Breaking the Chains. Obviously all spaced apart in the way it went. And it wasn't until later on that someone said to me, how come you don't listen to Van Halen? Now, I do remember hearing Van Halen on the radio, but I lived in a small town. So, and I think I talked about this way, way, way back when I first started this channel, but now there's 3 people or 6 people that watch it. This might be interesting. So anyway, I did eventually listen to Van Halen. I remember listening to, was it Running with the Devil? And then You Really Got Me, right? I hadn't listened to Eruption yet. And again, I'm not saying I hadn't heard it. I hadn't sat down and let it soak into the cerebellum and it just hadn't happened yet. It just hadn't. Anyway, I did. And don't get me wrong, I was very, very impressed with Eruption. Okay. Now the anger that I talked about when I first started the video, right after I got through playing, and I said, I don't think it's anger. It's the frustration that people, for some unknown reason, still to this day feel the need to go Randy Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen. Eddie Van Halen was #1, and Eddie Van Halen was, and Randy stole Eddie's licks and blah, 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 blah. Look, here's the deal, guys. And I don't care if you came from that era and you went and saw them, if you are still fighting to this day of them stealing each other's licks, or he stole Eddie's licks, or whatever, let's get something straight. First of all, let's put our big adult pants on, okay? And realize that they brought something to the table. Both of them did. And to tell me, oh, well, if you listen to Randy Rhoads, there's certain things in there that you'll notice were Eddie's. Man, if I listen to most guitar players, I'm going to pick out stuff, okay? If I listen to Stevie Ray Vaughan and go, oh, yeah, there's no Hendrix in that. Really, guys? We're all fully aware, okay? Everyone influences everyone. It's the way it goes. But to sit back and try and convince me at some point, oh, well, if you listen to the Blizzard of Oz album and you listen to Eddie's playing, Or if you listen to the tribute album and Randy's solo, man, stop. Just stop. Just stop. Why don't you just sit down, be an adult, I know it's hard, and just go, look, yeah, you may love Eddie more than you love Randy. You may love Randy more than you love Eddie. They all brought something to the table. George Lynch brought something to the table. Rick Emmett brought something to the table. Warren DeMartini, Jakey Lee, Vivian Campbell, Zakk Wylde. Everyone brings something to the table. Jeff Beck, Jimmy Page, Clapton. They all brought something to the table. Rory Gallagher, Hendrix. They all brought something to the table, and everybody got a little bit of something from that. Okay? Everybody. Comment. Out of the 3 that are left, maybe 2 by now. The other guy probably went to go do whatever. But comment. Tell me. Tell me I'm wrong if you want to tell me I'm wrong. All I'm doing is I'm saying, look, I'm so tired of when I see things here, and it's still going on to this day, where it's, you know, oh, well, Eddie Van Halen. Look, we're all fully aware that Eddie and Randy were running on the circuit at the same time. And we're all fully aware that Eddie is the king. Okay, even me, who Randy Rhoads influenced me. Eddie Van Halen did not influence me to pick up a guitar. Randy Rhoads influenced me. George Lynch influenced me. I don't sit back and go, I despise Eddie Van Halen. I'm the one guy who, to this day, when people go, oh man, you know, the Roth era, and that's it, and that's that. I go, so, you know, you don't like Eddie? And they go, oh, I love Eddie. Eddie's the king. Eddie's the best guitar player that ever. But you're only willing to give him credit for the Roth era? I don't get that. I loved Eddie's playing from the Roth era, the Hagar era. I loved his playing just in general. I think he matured myself, and I'm going to get hell if one of you decides to tell me down below. I really believe, wholeheartedly believe, that he matured by the time he started playing with Hagar. And what I mean by matured is not as a person or as a man. No, his playing and the way he approached things, to me, and especially in that time frame, okay, he'd already been part and parcel of the opening the doors and bringing that stuff to the forefront. So when he got in with the likes of Dokken and Rat and Bon Jovi and all them, he had to somewhat change what he was doing. And especially when you put Hagar up front, right? David Lee Roth was a showman. I think Sammy Hagar sings better than Roth. But showman-wise, David Lee Roth was the showman. And what they had was a raw, you know, Van Halen was a Zeppelin on steroids type thing, you know? The only difference was, yeah, Roth was a showman. But nonetheless, you know, to suddenly go, oh, well, you know, I joined forces with Sammy Hagar, and, you know. And the reason I bring this up again is I just talked about this the other day, about them going out with Joe Satriani and Satriani catching hell and all that. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because, again, I saw some of these comparisons again. And talking about, oh, Randy stole from Eddie. And blah. I'm so tired of that, man. It just burns me out. And you could say, okay, well, it's because you're a Randy Rhoads fan. No, it's called being an adult. And all I can say is, if without both of them, without, again, Beck, Hendrix, Clapton, Page, and pick a name, without anyone, we wouldn't have been influenced. And what do we do when we get influenced? We go home and we try things, right? So you go to a show and someone does something, right? Someone does a lick, and you go, oh man, that's amazing, right? So let's just, you go to a show and you hear the, and you go, oh, I got to go home and try that. Now all of a sudden it's, oh, he's ripping off Eddie. You know, you go home and you pinch picking, am I ripping off Zakk Wylde? You know, and if I did a scream and use my whammy bar, you know, but it screams so loud, they go, oh, he's ripping off Dime. Yet Dime took it from Ed. Everyone takes a little bit of something. It adds to the, it's like you're adding to the pot of stew that you're making, man. So to me, there's nothing wrong with that. And so years later, to still be arguing that someone stole from someone that stole from someone that stole from some. Now, blatantly going out and stealing from someone, if you go out and write a song and you go, and go, oh yeah, it's all mine. And you go, oh, have you ever listened to Randy Rhoads? No, I've never. What was it? There was an article one time that when they were talking to Vito Bratta, and they said, oh, heavily influenced by Eddie Van Halen. And he went, no. Okay. Anyway, that's all. That's the whole reason I'm putting this out today. Because I read an article this morning. I read one the other day, and I was going, what is going on? Come on, guys. Come on. Let's just love the fact that we had all these names. Let's just love the fact that we had all these names. From Van Halen to Rhoads to Lynch to DeMartini to Jakey Lee to Satriani to Vai, Kotzen, Gilbert, you know, pick the names, man. Jason Becker, all of them. Let's be thankful. And if they all took a little bit of Eddie and they put it in their stew pot, and they took a bit of Randy and put it in their stew pot, a little bit of Lynch, a little bit of whatever. What does it matter? End of the day, they all gave us a little bit of something. As far as comparing them, you can like Eddie more than you like Randy more than you like Eddie. They're geniuses. They gave us, just as Jeff Beck and Clapton and Hendrix and, you know, and let's face it, Stevie Ray Vaughan, B.B. King, you know, take any of those names out of the hat too, you know. And there's so many guitar players I could name, but we all have listened to someone and taken a bit. Rick Emmett, you know, Alex Lifeson, all of them, all these guys, man, have all brought something to the table for all of us. I just have to get off my chest and say that. Oh, by the way, I did say something just a minute ago, and it spurred me to remember that. Comment, if anyone wants to, Badlands, Jakey Lee's band. I always thought was like the modern day Zeppelin to me. I said that about Van Halen, but I'm talking Badlands was like so raw and so gritty that I just really always thought that had they continued on, had Ray Gillen lived, whatever, they really, such great albums. Anyway, I'm just going to end it on that note. Look, for those of you that came here and saw this, I appreciate it. I really do. Awesome. Thank you for stopping by, checking it out. Once in a while, I play a lot more than I do. Again, using a Petrucci JP6, running through the positive grid today. If you want to learn how to play the guitar, go to Ben Eller, Andy Wood, Robert Baker, Music is Win. They're out there. Go check them out. And because I love Uncle Ben, he's just an awesome guy to watch. That's where I go when I need to learn something. Less clicking, more picking. All right, guys. Peace. Much love to you all. Till next time.